Gigi Williams was the makeup department head on Mank. I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby. Now, I'm just going to start with the most layman question about working on a black and white film. Why not use black lipstick instead of colored lipstick so that you can see what it will look like in real life as opposed to having to go to a monitor?
Well, because you're working in tones. So a black lipstick is it has no depth, it's just black. But when you test 200 lipsticks, you get different tones. And so it's like it's like if I look in my purse, there's probably 8 red lipsticks because that's all I wear. And each one is a little different. So if I just went to black, I would miss those different tones and those different variations.
Okay.
There's nowhere to go with black.
Now, you said that you tested hundreds of lipsticks and hundreds of foundations as well on this film.
Yeah.
What's the standard? Like, how many are you normally testing?
I don't usually test any.
Okay.
Except maybe on the day of the shoot, say if I'm doing some kind of period piece and I'm looking at 60s lipsticks, then I'll test a few, but just by the color and the palette that I want to use. But for this, it was really for the tone, for the shine, for the depth, for just how it was going to read, how much saturation was going to be there, how much pop. There were so many variables. And the same thing with the foundation. It had to be not too shiny, not too matte. We ended up going with tinted moisturizers, which is not a product that I ever used very much, but this worked really great because I didn't want too much coverage. I just wanted it to look smooth and photo-like.
And how did the products differ in the 30s and 40s that are depicted in the film? And is that a concern of yours?
No, because we at one point I thought, well, maybe I'll use pancake, which is what they would use back then. Oh, it didn't work at all because we're working in 8K. So everything is blown up to the point where, if you have even a dot too much of something, it's like, whoa. There were days where Gary would say, I don't look bad enough. I don't have enough, dark circles. I don't, my eyes aren't red enough. I don't look bad enough. And his wife and I would go, oh, honey, you look bad. And he'd say, no, I don't. And then we'd take a picture and show him and he'd go, oh, I look bad. Because you have to be minimalist at the same time. You're looking for things that, like I used a lot of gray, brownish shadows around people's eyes to make it smoky, but not makeup smoky, but shadowy smoky from, bad lighting.
Netflix has been putting out a lot of materials about the shooting of Mank, about how, I guess, what they're positioning the awards narrative is the challenge of translating everything from color to black and white. And they're revealing how you actually had this very vibrant set. Would you say that that was the main challenge for you?
Yes,
Yes.
definitely. Yeah.
And what were the specifics of that challenge?
Well, there were obviously things that I do on a normal basis on a normal project that don't translate well. Like I always put guy liner on, but guy liner looked like guy liner in black and white. So I had to do it with a wash of shadow instead. I had to find different ways of achieving the look that I normally get in color, but with different tones and different products.
How did you convey the passage of time? The story takes place, it's jumping back and forth across the 30s and 40s, and I think even a bit earlier in one part. So how did the makeup differ?
Well, for the people in the flashback, they all looked like the makeup and hair of that period. Like we went back to the 20s. We made their eyebrows a little thinner. Their hair was different. It was mostly in the hair, really.
Okay.
Um, and and then of course in the 40s when we're shooting the real part of the film, Rita has a 40s look, as does Rita and Frida. And then Gary, when we're shooting him, writing the script, is at the bottom of his alcoholism. He really is a pig. He sweats, he's dirty, he's bloated, he's bug-eyed, he's got the DTs. So I used a lot of sweat and red around his eyes and shading and painted his capillaries to be brighter and really dirtied him up. But then when he does his flashbacks, I tried to smooth him out, make him softer, more young, and then, but he was always sweating, and then put him in that flashback. What I wanted to do, because he's an alcoholic, so he likes to sweat. He is sweaty. So what I tried to do was take him from 1940s in his flashbacks to say 1934, and have his look not be as polished as 1934, but sort of halfway between 40s bottom and where he was in his flashback, because I really wanted his flashbacks to be a memory. I wanted him to be in his flashback as a memory of his flashback. And at the end of the movie, Gary goes, "Did you achieve what you wanted to?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I did." And I talked to the writer about it. He said, "That makes a lot of sense. I can see that. I think you have to really know that to see that, but that was my goal."
Yeah, I want to ask more about Gary Oldman and the passage of time with him, because he's playing a much younger character, and I think different from Gary Oldman's recent films or David Fincher's recent work with you on Mindhunter, for example. I didn't notice a credit for a prosthetics designer or a special makeup effects designer. So can you tell me about that decision-making process?
At the beginning, Gary wanted to go full on rubber. Full on. He wanted to, bring in Kazu, who did Darkest Hour with him, and who did work with us on Mindhunter. And David was adamant that there would be no prosthetics, nothing for Gary to hide behind, because that's Gary's favorite thing to do. You cannot find him in a film without artifice. Though on The Professional, I don't think there was any artifice, and I did that with him. But he's got a gold tooth or a wig or a permanent or something. He hides behind things. He's not really comfortable with the way he looks. And David really, really, really wanted him to be naked. So that was a big fight. David, Gary he wanted to shave his head back and then have pieces put in and jowls and blah 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 blah. And he didn't get any of that. So I really had to make Gary happy with my paint so that he felt comfortable enough. And then of course, with the hair, she made it darker. She took some of the gray out when he was younger, which really helped. And his hair was more combed neatly. And as he progresses to the 1940s, it's a little messier. There's more gray in it. She did pluck out a few hairs and make it thinner.
Now, you've been nominated a couple times at the Makeup Artists and Hairstylist Guild Awards. At the Oscars, we're coming up on those. You could be nominated for that. I find that the category of best makeup and hairstyling so often goes to the best prosthetics. Not really so much hairstyling, not necessarily so much makeup. Is that also how you vote on awards? Is that the most impressive work?
No, and this has been a big fight within the Academy, because up until last year there was only three nominations.
Yes.
And that's because there was an unwritten rule that you could not be nominated unless you had at least a fake nose, something.
Mhm.
And now we have 5 nominees, and I think I heard at the meeting a couple of weeks ago, I heard the word subtle a few times. And I was very excited by that, because the 2 times that I lost on the Guild Awards, I lost to things that were very big, very bold, very in your face. And my stuff is not like that. So I was really happy to hear subtle. That's a very favorite word of mine. I mean, I've been doing makeup for 40 years. There's really nothing that I feel I can't do. And I think we're at a place in makeup and hair. I mean, there were times where hair wasn't even nominated. It was just makeup and makeup. And now it's makeup and hair. We sit there and we say, what's, makeup, hair, prosthetics. And I think it's an awareness at this point that in order to be a good makeup artist, you have to be able to do all of it. It all has to be in your bailiwick. And so I think it's brought everybody's work up. You can do prosthetics, you can do beauty.
If you're nominated at the Oscars, you'll be nominated with Michelle Kim, your assistant makeup department head. Now, she does not have a 40-year career. She got her first credit on Gone Girl, I believe. So how did you find her?
We were shooting Gone Girl in Missouri, and her dad worked for us. And he came in and he said, my daughter has gone to makeup school. She's a photographer. She's gone to art school. If you need help, she'd love to help you out. So she came in as a PA and makeup, and she was so good. And I had 4 to 6 women to get ready every single morning through half the film. And I gave some to Michelle, and she just jumped in. She did beautiful work. And I dragged her with me ever since.
And I wanted to ask about your journey as well, because you don't do a lot of interviews. How did you come up in this business and get to where you are?
I was doing print work for Vogue. I worked for Diane von Furstenberg. I was doing print and beauty, and then I hated it. It was awful. There was all these stupid people, and the photographers all had their hands on all the 12-year-old models. It was just disgusting. And so I would only work 4 days a week. And that was a lot of money. I was making about $2,000 a day back then. It was in the 70s, which is a lot of money for a 27-year-old, 26-year-old. And one day I said to him, I was like, I'll only work 4 days. I can't stand this. I hate it. And one of my girlfriends said she was doing a movie with Brian De Palma and wanted to know if I wanted to test to do the makeup. I was like, yeah, sure. I did the test. I got the job. And that was my first movie. And ever since then, I've been working. I lived in New York, and I knew the Ramones were doing a movie. So I called up the director for the Ramones movie, and I said, listen, I have to do this movie. And he was like, well, send me your book. So I send him my book, and he calls me back and he goes, you're too overqualified. I don't have any money. I can't bring you to California. I would love to have you. I said, that's okay. I'll get on a plane. I'll find a place to stay. And I did it for $200 a week, Rock and Roll High School. And it was amazing. I've always worked. I did Saturday Night Live. I mean, I did Tom Ford movie. I gravitate towards directors. So I don't like to do personals, really. I don't really like to work with just one actor. I like to do the whole film. I like to work with the directors. When we did A Single Man, Tom Ford came up at the end of the first day and he said, so what'd you think? And I said, oh my God, we made art. He says, well, I hope we make art every day. And you don't really feel that when you're working in the film business a lot. I mean, it's far and few between. I feel very privileged and lucky and honored that, I've worked with the directors that I've worked with, because they're not the directors who say, yeah, it's fine, let's move on. They're like, no, let's do it again.
Yeah, great. And finally, I wanted to ask one thing about David Fincher. I've seen you say that he doesn't like the color red at all, and he normally tries to avoid it on all his sets. So what's that about?
I don't know. He doesn't like red. He doesn't like red. He can handle a Chinese red, an orangey red, but not the other one, the bluer red. He hates red. It's like a bull with red. So even on this, I had to find reds that weren't going to be too distracting for him while we're on the set, even though he's watching most of it through a monitor, which is black and white. But He just hates red. I mean, you go on the set and you go, oh, there's a red thermos over there on the set. He's not going to like that. And you have to move it.
All right, I guess that's it. Okay, Gigi, thanks very much for taking the time to chat. We have other Mank interviews on our YouTube channel, and you can make your own Oscar predictions at goldderby.com.
Great. Thank you so much.